With the emotions when Ren called you, offered it to you, can you explain what that was like and how long did it take you to say yes?
I think I said yes before he completed his sentence. I think Ren was very thorough, and I've been fortunate to be through a few of these processes before, and there's always a time frame to go with it, but everybody was really professional. It was no, lead you one way and go another way. Asked all the questions, even the hard questions. And the last 24 hours, when you get interviewed, you're thinking, okay, now I'm a finalist. And I'm thinking to myself, well, Ms. Rita and I were like, let's not get our hopes up too high because we don't want to be devastated. So probably the last 7 or 8 hours, he tortured us, till there finally was a call and said, you ready to come back home? And the answer was, before he finished the sentence, are you kidding me? I might have said a bad word in between there, but yeah, very nice.
Anyone else? Luke Blaine, Daily Athenaeum. So, Coach, obviously, you experienced today an unruly fan, and there are fans out there who might still carry some hard feelings about the end of the 07 season. So do you have a message to fans who are a bit apprehensive about your return to Morgantown?
Sure, and I understand there's fans upset, and at least they care, right? But sometimes, that not everything is as you think it is. But I made a mistake, and my promise to not just the folks that are upset, but to everybody here and everybody that's been very, very supportive. All right, I will earn your support. We will earn your support and your trust back, and I'm committed to that. And I've thought about that even before this opportunity. I wanted to be able. It's my home, and it's such a great state that I want to be able to come back. And I'll prove to them that the man to my right made the right decision.
Mike Osti with West Virginia Sports Now. Coach, separate from the personal and maybe those detractors that Luke's bringing up, there could be some others, and we've heard this since the announcement, that say you wanted Jacksonville State, but that's a different lower level than the Power Four. You did have success, but it was many years ago, last time you had a big success at Arizona, and they're apprehensive that your success at Jacksonville State would translate, and your success in the past would translate at the Power Four level in this current culture. How would you respond to that criticism that it was too long ago for Power Four success?
I mean, there's a lot of opinions, a lot of them are uneducated, and some of them don't know the resources, but it doesn't, all we've tried to do is every place we went to build the best football program in America, and some had different challenges. I'm really proud of what happened at Jack State, the players and the staff we had there. We went from a 1AA team to a 1A team, and nobody's ever done that, and went to 2 straight bowls and won a conference championship in their second year, and played some pretty good football, against some teams. There's a lot of Power 4 teams that wouldn't want to play Jack State right now, I can tell you that. But with that being said, as I mentioned earlier, if I was the same coach now that I was in 2007, then I didn't follow my own guidelines for my players and my staff about getting better every day. And now I know the landscape has changed, the goalposts have moved, and we've moved with it. The great part about it is that this opportunity for me was so good, not only because it was home, not only because I wanted to come back and make it right, but because the school, Ren, and everybody here associated with President Gee and the board are committed to having us have a seat at the table and trying to win. They're not just going to compete, they want to win, and we're used to winning here. So that to me was extra appealing, and all the naysayers, all that kind of stuff, I'm going to just say, just wait till we play, and then you'll see what's going to happen. Well, you'll be all right.
All right, Coach. Joe Smith here with Reddit's College Football Press Corps. Main thing I want to ask you is, you brought this program to some of its most national relevance, its most national success during your previous tenure here. It's 17 years ago. The sport has changed. The university has changed. We're in a different conference. Can you talk about what your vision is to bring West Virginia football back to national relevance and success, and how that might have changed since your first tenure here?
Yeah, the biggest thing that's changed, obviously the transfer portal. Guys are almost free agents every year, and they're getting paid. Not all this stuff is all bad, but you got to be positioned to do that. But when Coach Nealon was here and winning, when I had some success here, whenever they had success here, you got really, really good players and you coached them really hard. That's what happened when I played here for Don Nealon. He had good players. I wouldn't be a great player, but I was okay. But he had good players, and then we got coached hard. All right, my players here, and some of you here, I had a lot of really good players, and they played really hard. That formula has not changed, and I think that's the key, our key to our success. We're going to find really good players that want to be at West Virginia, and then they're going to play really hard, and then we'll win.
Derek?
Hey, Coach. Derek Red from Ogden Newspapers. Right here. You've been on a coaching odyssey for all these years. You've had great highs, you've had some lows, you've had twists, you've had turns, and you talked about like what you've learned and how you have kind of evolved as a coach through those years. What are some of the biggest things that you have taken, some of the most important tenets that you have taken from those different stops that you're going to bring to here to make you the best version of yourself for this team?
Yeah, I think every place is unique. I said there's certain principles that you got to have at every place you're at as a coach, but then certain places are unique, and how you go attack the recruiting, how you get your talent, or how do you acquire your talent, your staff and you put together. But I think the biggest thing is that, and I know there's a lot of, I say older coaches like myself, maybe you want to call me an older coach, I feel young, I feel good. By the way, I don't know if you all know, we're talking about contract length or nothing like that.
We hadn't put that out yet.
Okay.
You can answer.
No, I'm just saying I got a 5-year contract, but I would have signed a lifetime contract, but then if I lost you, it killed me. So, I mean.
He did offer that up.
Yeah, I
That's
did
a
offer that
legitimate
up.
thing.
And then there's a lot of guns in the state of West Virginia, too, you know what I mean? But I forgot your damn question. What was you asking?
What are the tenets that you've taken through those travels?
The
and through
tenets
this
I've taken, pretty simple. You get really good players and coach them really hard and help them get better, you're going to win. It hadn't changed. The formula is the same for Don Nealon. It's the same for Rich Rodriguez.
Keenan. Go ahead.
Is that Avon Coburn in the front row? Avon Coburn right here in the front row.
Keenan Cummings with WVU Rich, you mentioned good players. What is your plan for recruiting here? How is it different, if it will be different from last time? And how do you balance, high school traditional recruiting and the transfer portal now?
Yeah, the difference in recruiting now is like we're recruiting right now because we're in the transfer portal. Typically, December was a quieter time. The first couple weeks in January is a quieter time. Then you hope you signed everybody in February. Now you got guys in the portal for another week and a half or so, and you got to try to retain guys. I don't want to lose any really good players going in the portal. So that's the first priority. The second priority is we better try to find some guys that we need out of the portal. So we got to evaluate our current players and how good they are. And then we got to be completely honest with our guys, not just now, but certainly in the spring, where they stand. Because I don't want to have a guy and tell him, well, you're going to be a starter, but he's going to be a third-team guy. He probably needs to go somewhere else. So the revolving door, so to speak, from a transfer portal situation, I like to see it slow down a little bit, but unfortunately, that's the landscape that we're in. And so you have to constantly evaluate every day about building not just your program, but building your team.
Go right ahead.
Tanner Mounts, Blue Gold Sports. Obviously, you had a lot of success here at West Virginia earlier when they were in the Big East, now in the Big 12. What are the differences that you see in the two conferences, and what could be some challenges that you see?
Yeah, I don't know if from the football standpoint, ability-wise or schematic-wise or what have you, that it's a whole lot different. It's just a difference in, the location. Some of those schools you're in the Big East, most schools you're competing against, you usually compete against them in recruiting and all that back then because everybody's in the same region, and recruiting was different. Now everybody's everywhere, but so is recruiting is everywhere because of the transfer portal. So that's a little bit different. It was kind of unique when I was talking to Ren about that, and they're looking at the Big 12. I'm like, I'm more familiar with these teams than maybe any other league because of my time in the Pac-12. And you're talking about Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, even played BYU a couple of times. So I probably know those programs, know those regions, know how they recruit, or at least how they've recruited in the past more than any other league.
Go right ahead, Justin.
This question is for Ren. Obviously, going back a couple weeks ago to the Neil Brown decision, the billboards across town, there was obviously some kind of divide in the fan base at that time. Do you think this hire helps alleviate some of that divide or not?
Yeah, listen, I think you want to be careful how much you overvalue any particular fan sentiment at any particular time. I mean, listen, sports is where you get to come and you get to be irrational and emotional. And so I think my job is to not weigh that into the decision-making matrix. And I love the fans, and I love when they love me, and I ignore when they don't, because that's part of the job, right? Like you just have to make the best decisions that you can, armed and equipped with the best decision the best information that you have. But here's what I know about West Virginia. Listen, I heard from both sides, and Coach and I talked about this. He knows that there's some people that have hard feelings from 17 years ago. But West Virginians love to see West Virginians do well. And West Virginians love to see this program do well and represent this state. And when I sat with him, no other candidate had the kind of passion for this state, this community, this university, and this football program the way that he did. It's very personal. I mean, and I'm excited that he's here, and I think we're going to rally the fan base. We're going to win games, and there won't be any kind of division. Everybody will be rooting for the Mountaineers.
John.
Coach John Lowe, Golden Blue Nation. How does this job as a coach, as a CEO of a football program compare now to 2001?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think because of the changing landscape of college football, college athletics in particular, with the NIL, transfer portal. There's so many different things that a head coach in particular has to be involved in. You've always been involved in as a head coach and help raising money, but before you were raising money for scholarships or you're raising money for facilities, and now you're trying to help raise money to pay players. Yes, there's only a few schools down south that used to do that. You know what I mean? They would do it through the churches. You know what I mean? They have a little.
I always call those UTGs, under the table grants.
Yeah, under the table stuff, I have to tell this story. I had an athletic director, a friend, call me, and he said, it used to be one of your players would fly into the airport, you couldn't go and pick him up in a car because it was a violation. He said, now you just give him a car and give him the keys and say, take it. So things have changed a little bit, but I think in answer to your question, there's a lot more a head coach has to do outside typically X's and O's and developing players, so to speak. So you better have a great staff. And I'm still involved in the football part of it because I love it. I still call plays. But I'm going to put together a great staff. And fortunately, we have the means to put together a great staff that can take some of that burden off of me in all these aspects.
Quick follow-up, how does the state of the program compare?
Where we're at right now?
To 2001, yes.
Oh, I think the kids are. I think kids nowadays are probably bigger and faster and smarter. Somebody asked me the other question. I said, well, 20 or 30 years ago, or when I played for Coach Nealon 40 years ago, coaches tell you run through the wall, you'll run through the wall. Now you tell them run through the wall, but you got to tell them why. And if you don't give them the right answer, they'll pull their phone out and say, that's not what it says on Google. I don't know about that. So they're smarter. I don't know if they're as tough mentally. And that's the challenge. That's what we try to do as coaches, make them a little bit tougher mentally. But the kids are more talented and smarter now.
Back on the camera deck. Go ahead, sir.
Coach, John Fredericks, West Virginia Media, and WZST, your flagship. A lot of veteran coaches around your level of maturity have really chafed at the new rules. NIL, open portals, it drove Nick Saban, who we heard earlier, out of the business, and others. How do you see yourself navigating your way through the new way we do recruiting and paying players?
Yeah, that's another point about, I guess when I was here, I was a younger coach. Now I'm an older coach. But you do have to learn and adapt. And you could get frustrated, and that's okay to be frustrated. But what overrides, I think, for me personally, is that everything revolves around winning. Maybe over the top so much. Every decision we're going to make that's going to help us win. And probably ultra competitive. One thing I'm most proud of some of all of our teams we had here and everywhere else, is they were really, really competitive. And our staff is going to be really, really competitive. And so if you're going to be really, really competitive and the rules say this, then you got to do the rules that say this. And that's where it struggles for some of the coaches that are always used to doing the same thing all the time. You got to be willing to adapt in this day and age, and we're doing that.
Yeah, I just would add real quick, as we went through this process, coaches like Coach Rodriguez, I would argue, are better equipped in some ways to navigate the portal because they're having to deal with all this without the financial resources to just retain people financially. So if you're at a group of 5 school, your roster's really getting picked over and really getting depleted, and there's really people doing tampering. So in terms of trying to replenish talent, in terms of trying to keep talent without just being able to fork over more money, I would argue better prepared in some ways for managing the portal.
Staying on the camera deck with Kevin.
Hey, Coach. Kevin Kidner.
Hey, kid.
And those of us that have been around as long as you are pretty familiar with your offense, the things that you do defensively. You've worked with different schemes, had different things in your different stops since here. Any thought yet on what that might look like here, or does that depend on your coaching staff?
Yeah, it depends on the coordinator I hire. I have a couple that I've talked to. I have a couple in mind, and they're different. They're not the same. And everybody runs a little bit of everything now defensively, whether it's an odd stack or an even front, and everybody kind of has certain personnel packages they use on defense. But I'm going to pick the D coordinator first. I'll have a really good one because I have enough resources to hire a really, really good one. And then from there, I'll build out the defensive staff. And there's not one particular scheme that I want other than I want us to be really, really aggressive, and I want to force the issue, so to speak, on the other team.
Here in the front row.
Coach Kevin Redford, Golden Blue Nation, down here.
Okay.
In regards to the House settlement revenue share payouts, how hands-on do you see yourself being with that? And did you have to pitch a plan in your interview?
No, I think I do. I think one of my strengths, and maybe it was because I started off at a small school in Glenville, West Virginia, and I had Mr. Ike Morris there that was the supporter, and I learned from Mike. How about a shout out for Ike Morris? I had 2 friends, Ike Morris and Paul Astorg. Paul Astorg, who's like a brother to me as well. I've known him for 30-some years, and you learned how to, when you're raising money, you're developing friendship, not just hope you're getting a check from or something like that. And I've had some experience doing it from a long, long time ago, and I'm comfortable doing it, and we have to do it. I mean, I hope we have enough revenue, for season ticket sales. Everybody here is going to buy a season ticket, right? So we're going to get all your friends to buy season tickets, sell the place out, and then we have more projects that I told Brent I'm more than happy to help raise.
They might as well buy season tickets because by the time we get to 9/13, those single game seats for the backyard brawl will be costing more than the season ticket would have cost
exactly
you.
Right.
So go ahead and get your season tickets and save you some money.
Whatever the record is, maybe one of y'all know, Anthony, how you doing? Whatever the record is for season tickets, let's bust that record right this spring. Let's bust it up. You want to get it while you can, right?
Mike.
Mike Osti again with West Virginia Sports Now, and this actually could be for either one of you. There was a lot of talk last year, even year before, about schedule making, scheduling. Ren, you've been open that you feel the strength of schedule is a direct result in teams' records, especially in the Big 12. There's been some tinkering. Next year, you're going to have an FCS to start, where that wasn't the case for many years under Coach Brown. What is your opinion, Coach Rodriguez, on how the out-of-conference schedule should work with only 3 possible out-of-conference games and a desire, obviously, to probably want to play the brawl? And then, Ren, how do you see that going forward? Because right now, in 2026, you would have 11 Power Fours if it currently stays the way it is, and you said you didn't want to proceed that way in the future.
So I think Coach and I are aligned here, but I'll let him answer. We talked a little scheduling yesterday, and in the process, in a perfect world, that's exactly what our schedule would be. We would have an FCS, we would have a group of 5 school, we would have a Power 4 non-conference game, and preferably we would like for that to be Pitt. The backyard brawl is a special game, and we would like for that to be them. But when it's not them, we would like for it to be another regional Power Conference rival. We added that game with Virginia as neutral site, but the reality is going and playing East Carolina and Greenville and playing Virginia neutral site, those are probably toss-ups in terms of degree of difficulty, and one of those we're paying to go to Greenville, North Carolina, and the other one we're we're getting a couple $1 million payday, and when you're talking about rev share, we thought that was the best decision. But yeah, going forward, that would be our scheduling model. Could a financial situation change that at some point? Yeah, but I think I've said this before. You don't have to guess. Everybody has an opinion. The data and the facts are that if you overschedule in the non-conference, especially when you're trying to bring a program back like we are, it's counterproductive. And so, I know everybody wants us to play a top 5 team every week. I'm telling you right now, that's not the way to build a successful football program.
Yeah, and we play 9 league games. Not every conference plays 9 league games. The SEC's still not doing it, and that for that reason. So, playing 9 league games, and then the way this schedule and Ren's plan for the schedule, I think is what you're going to see most Power 4 teams do in the future.
Final question, John.
Oh no, we're not. We're over. We're not taking any questions from John. Who credentialed?
Yeah.
Final Forecast podcast, John Flowers.
Give John a round of applause.
Coach Rich Rod, I was here. Welcome back. First of all, I was
you.
here when you were here. I was on that Final Four team. But I think a lot of people are excited about the style of offense that you're going to play. We had Pat White, Steve Slayton running that Wildcat offense, and I love to come see it. I used to sneak in the facility and watch you guys practice a little bit. So, are we going to see some of that Wildcat offense?
Yeah, certain things have changed a little bit, and Avon and some of the guys could probably remember some of the still play calls, but the tempo in playing fast, I always thought, who wants to watch a bunch of fat guys hold hands in a huddle, right? So we don't, when we huddle up, it's like a trick play for us to huddle up. So I do think, and you're sitting in the stands, I don't want you to I want to give you enough time. I guess we sell beer now, right?
We do.
I want you to have
a lot of it, Coach.
Yeah, so we're going to have enough time and TV timeouts and, change of possessions where you can buy your beer. But when we're on offense, you're not going to have time to buy it between the plays, you know what I mean? But once we get on defense or once we have a TV timeout, go there and let's go Mountaineers, let's go drink some beers, you know what I mean? So.
One last question, Mr. Avon Coburn.
Last question. So, Coach, welcome back.
Thank you, Avon.
I'm so happy that you're here, and I know everybody else is as well. One last question. I think it was maybe 2 years ago, there was a game that was played against us and Pitt, and there was a coach that said that that game is not as big of a game as it. Let's not make too big of a deal out of this game. How important is that Pitt game to you? And to the city. How important would that be for you?
It can't make it big enough. It's the biggest that we play every year. Like I said, 4-letter word. What do we say? What? Oh, okay. That's my sentiments exactly, Avon. Thank you.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we are concluded. Thank you, Mountaineer Nation, for turning out. Rich Rodriguez, Ren Baker, we'll see you down the road. Thanks for being with us, everyone.